Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we sift through the sources to bring you those crucial nuggets of insight. Today, we're tackling a phrase that, well, it's echoed through history, shaped global events, and it continues to spark really intense debate. You hear it a lot in political discussions, especially about the modern state of Israel. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. Now, if you've ever heard this verse, used to justify a specific political stance, maybe get ready. Because what we're diving into today might just flip that understanding a bit. This isn't just some catchy line. It's a really profound promise given to Abram way back in Genesis 12. So our mission here is to unpack what this ancient covenant truly means, according to biblical narrative itself. We're drawing from an incredibly insightful source today. It's called blessingsandcurses.pdf by Minister Donato S. Powell Sr., and really digs deep into Genesis 12, those dramatic Balaam oracles and numbers, and crucially, how the New Testament brings it all together.
Exactly. And our goal for you, the listener, is really to move beyond any sort of narrow, maybe single application view of this promise. We want to help you grasp the deeper, what we sometimes call redemptive historical pledge that's embedded in these texts. When we say redemptive historical, we mean this isn't just a promise for one single moment. It's like a thread weaving through history. It reveals God's unfolding plan to redeem, to save, and restore humanity. And it all leads to this greater universal purpose. So the aim is to discover how this ancient promise actually points forward to a much broader covenant purpose with implications, far beyond what many might initially assume.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack this then, starting with Genesis 12. This is where God lays out his foundational promise to Abram. It establishes a covenant that would, well, quite literally change the world. It reads, I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. No. I'll bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Now, in its immediate context, that great nation part, it clearly seems to refer to Abraham's direct descendants, through Isaac and Jacob, those who later become known as Israel. No, but that last line, all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. That sounds like a massive expansion, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And honestly, that's the key. It's the key to understanding the ultimate fulfillment of this promise. That climactic statement, in you all families of the earth shall be blessed. It's profoundly messianic. And for those maybe not familiar, messianic just means it's pointing forward to the Messiah, to Christ. The Apostle Paul himself picks this up in Galatians chapter 3, verses 8 and 16. He explicitly states that this promise, this specific one, pointed directly to Christ. He even calls Christ the seed through whom this universal blessing would come. So right from the get-go, this promise was never meant to be contained forever within just one ethnicity or nation state. It always had this global, Christ-centered horizon.
Okay, so it's not just a general statement then, or like a simple good luck wish. You said it's inherently covenantal. For those of us who might hear covenant and just think of, a legal document, what's the deeper spiritual weight of that word here? Why is that distinction so important?
Yeah, that's a great question, because covenantal is, well, it's a really powerful word here. Think of it less like a contract and more like God's solemn, unbreakable promise. It's a binding agreement he initiates, setting the terms for his relationship with humanity, much deeper, much more enduring. It signifies God's initiative, his faithfulness. The promise to Abram isn't just a prediction, it's God committing himself. Committing to a specific plan to bring blessing to the entire world through this chosen line. And because it's God's covenant, well, those who align with it are aligning with God's purpose itself. Conversely, anyone who opposes God's redemptive plan through Abraham's line, they ultimately oppose God himself, his grand design. So crucially, this isn't about giving a sort of blanket endorsement to any political state in any era. Instead, the text is really about God's sweeping redemptive purpose. That trajectory, Abraham, Israel, Christ, and then out to all nations, that sequence is vital.
Okay, so we have this incredible, unbreakable covenant laid out in Genesis. But how does it hold up under direct attack? And this is where you said it gets really interesting. Let's fast forward to Numbers 22, 24. This dramatic story. It's almost cinematic. The tale of Balaam. So the scene is set. Balak, the king of Moab, he's terrified of the Israelites. They're camped right on his border. He sees them as this massive threat. So what does he do? He hires Balaam, a famous prophet, specifically to curse Israel. He wants to stop them using spiritual warfare. It's a real test of God's promise, isn't it?
Oh, it's the ultimate test. And it just beautifully shows the inviolability of God's covenant promise. Inviolability meaning, it cannot be violated, broken, or overcome, no matter what. So despite being hired to curse, and yeah, even trying to curse, Balaam finds himself completely unable to. Why? Because God's covenant promise to Israel stands firm. It's a moment of just incredible divine intervention. The text makes it super clear. Balaam asks, almost sounds like exasperation in Numbers 23:8, how shall I curse whom God has not cursed, and how can I denounce whom the Lord has not denounced? He physically can't because God already spoke a blessing. Then in Numbers 23:20, he declares, behold, I have received a command to bless. He is blessed, and I cannot revoke it. Imagine King Balak's face. And maybe most powerfully, in Numbers 24:9, Balaam, clearly under divine inspiration, now echoes Genesis 12. Blessed is everyone who blesses you, and curses everyone who curses you. Wow.
Wow, indeed. That's not just a fascinating story. It's a profound demonstration of God's protection. It's almost like God threw up this, I don't know, divine shield around his people saying, look, my word stands, no matter who tries to undo it. But what exactly is God protecting here? Is it just a people group? Or is it something more?
It's absolutely something more. That's the critical point. This whole narrative, it reinforces the inviolability of God's covenant purpose. It shows God protects his covenant people because they are his chosen instrument, his instrument for the redemption of the world. He's not just protecting an ethnic group just for their own sake, if that makes sense. It's because through them, his redemptive plan, the one culminating in Christ, will come to fruition. So the focus isn't merely ethnicity or, geopolitics. It's God's unwavering faithfulness to his the promise to bless all nations through Abraham's seed. Balaam learns it, and we learn it too. You just cannot curse what God has blessed in pursuit of his ultimate plan. His covenant faithfulness is paramount.
Okay, so we've seen the promise given to Abraham, incredibly powerful, expansive. We've seen its inviolability, like you said, dramatically shown through Balaam. God's purpose is unstoppable. But that kind of begs an even bigger question, doesn't it? If this blessing is so powerful, so universal, who exactly gets to inherit it? Does Israel always mean the same thing throughout history? Or is there maybe a surprising twist coming?
There is indeed a crucial twist, a surprising one for many, perhaps. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the New Testament, well, it profoundly universalizes the promise. It fundamentally shifts our understanding of who constitutes Israel in the truest, deepest sense. It's not about erasing the original identity, mind you, but expanding it. Paul, back in Galatians chapter 3, tells us something truly revolutionary. Verses 7-9, he says, get this, those who are of faith are sons of Abraham. God would justify the Gentiles by faith. Paul's essentially saying, look, it's no longer just about your family tree, your ethnic line. It's about faith. That's the true spiritual lineage in God's eyes now. And maybe even more surprisingly, he adds that God would justify the Gentiles by faith, opening this promise literally to everyone who believes, regardless of background.
Wow. So if you're thinking Israel just means one specific ethnic group or maybe the modern nation state, Paul is basically saying, hold on, it's actually it's a spiritual family united by faith, not just by blood or borders. That's a game changer, right? But does that mean ethnic Israel is somehow excluded or replaced?
It doesn't mean exclusion, no. But it does mean a redefinition of identity within God's ongoing plan. Paul clarifies this even more in Romans chapter 9, verses 6-8. He makes an even sharper distinction there. He says, for not all who are descended from Israel belong to Israel. I'll say that again. Not all who are descended from Israel belong to Israel. He continues, it is not the children of the flesh who are children of God, but the children of the promise. So it's not about physical birth. It's about being born into God's family through faith, aligning with the children of the promise. It creates this really crucial distinction between just, ethnic descent and truly being part of God's covenant people, the spiritual heirs of Abraham. And just to really hammer this home, look at 1 Peter 2, verses 9 and 10. Peter takes these profound identity markers originally given to Israel, phrases like a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession, and he applies them directly to the New Testament church, which, importantly, unites both Jew and Gentile in Christ. They together are the true recipients of these promises, the ongoing manifestation of God's chosen people.
What stands out to you, the listener, from that? I mean, for me, it means the Israel that cannot be cursed, the true recipient of that Abrahamic blessing. It's ultimately defined as the people of God united to Christ by faith. That's a redefinition with massive, truly transforming implications for how we see ancient texts and modern events.
Absolutely. It reframes everything. Totally.
And this reinterpretation, it's incredibly powerful. It's something many theological experts have really dug into deeply. So what do some of these scholarly perspectives add here? Do they kind of reinforce this idea of a broader, more spiritual Israel?
Oh, they absolutely do. Their insights provide really crucial support for exactly this understanding. For example, Christopher Wright, a leading Old Testament scholar, in his huge work, The Mission of God, he makes a compelling case. He argues that if you look really closely at Genesis 12, that phrase, all peoples on earth will be blessed through you, it isn't just some add-on, it's the climax, it's the driving force of the entire promise. He really emphasizes that Genesis 12 is fundamentally a missional text. It's always pointing outward to all nations, meaning Israel was chosen for the world, not just for itself. Which shifts our whole perspective, right? From exclusive privilege to an inclusive global mission.
Right. So the promise was never designed to be just held on too tightly, but always had this outward-looking universal purpose baked in from the start. That's a major shift. What about other scholars? Any others reinforce this?
Yes, definitely. Walter Kaiser, for instance, in The Promised Plan of God, he argues along similar lines. He says, while the Abrahamic promise is obviously foundational, its ultimate, its most complete fulfillment is found in Christ and the gospel message, not in any single modern political entity. He shows how the whole Old Testament narrative really builds towards this Christ-centered climax.
Right.
Then you have N.T. Wright, another hugely influential New Testament scholar. In Paul and the Faithfulness of God, he highlights how Paul himself actively redefines Israel around Christ. For Paul, the true people of God are those in him, united by faith, not merely ethnic descendants. It's about being in Christ. And John Goldingay, in his Old Testament theology, adds another layer. He reminds us that Israel's election was always vocational.
Okay, vocational, that sounds important. For those of us, who aren't seminary grads, can you break that down? What does vocational election actually mean for Israel's role in God's bigger plan?
Sure. It simply means they weren't chosen just to be God's favorite people. End of story. They were chosen to do something for God's larger purpose. Think of it like having a job, a specific calling, a sacred task he gave them. Their election wasn't just about their own benefit. It was about being the vessel, the channel, through which God would eventually bring the ultimate blessing, his son, Jesus, to the entire world. They were chosen to be a light, to mediate blessing, to be the instrument for God's global redemptive mission. That's the vocation part. Not just privilege, but purpose.
Got it. Purpose, not just privilege.
Okay, so bringing all these threads together now, from Genesis through Balaam, the New Testament twists, these scholarly insights, what does this all mean for us today? How should we understand that really powerful Genesis 12 blessing and curse today? Well, synthesizing it all, it means Genesis 12 sets up this foundational covenant of blessing and curse centered on Abraham's seed. And that seed, as Paul makes clear and as the whole story unfolds, is ultimately fulfilled in Christ. Then Numbers 22-24, the Balaam story, powerfully confirms that God's covenant purpose, now centered in Christ, cannot be cursed because his redemptive plan is unstoppable. Therefore, when we look at the modern nation-state of Israel, while it certainly has its own historical and contemporary significance, it's just not what Genesis 12 was primarily or ultimately about. The promise, in its fullest sense, applies to God's covenant people in Christ, drawn from all nations, transcending political entities or national borders.
Okay, so let me try to state the practical implication clearly then. To bless Israel today, in light of all this, means something far broader, far deeper than just, say, geopolitical support for one nation. It means aligning ourselves with God's overarching redemptive purposes that are fulfilled in Christ. It means embracing and maybe even advancing the gospel, the good news that is intended to go to all nations. It's really about participating in God's universal mission, the one that started with Abraham but exploded into the whole world through Jesus. Is that fair?
That's exactly it. A participation in God's universal mission through Christ.
Wow. Okay, what an incredibly insightful deep dive this has been. We've really seen how a single powerful promise back in Genesis has this unfolding story, weaving through the drama of Numbers, getting profoundly reinterpreted in the New Testament. And it comes right up to today, dramatically reshaping how we might understand who God's people truly are and what his mission actually entails.
Yeah, and this raises, I think, an important question for all of us, for you listening. This journey through these texts, it shows us that the covenant of blessing and curse finds its ultimate fulfillment in Christ. And because of that, it extends to all who are united to him by faith. It doesn't matter what your ethnic background is or your political affiliation. It's a truly universal promise that cuts across human divisions.
Yeah, think about that. The understanding of blessing Israel really transforms, doesn't it, from maybe a specific act of political support into this dynamic participation in God's universal mission of the gospel. It invites us to see the much bigger picture, to join a purpose that began thousands of years ago, but is still unfolding today. So here's something to maybe chew on this week. Consider how understanding these ancient covenants in this deeper way challenges us to look beyond the immediate headlines, beyond maybe simplistic applications, and instead grasp the enduring, universal narrative of blessing and purpose that continues to unfold in the world. And maybe it's an invitation too, an invitation to explore what it means for you to be a part of that mission today.